Hi, I'm Mac, and this is Multi-Corner. In this video, I'll tell you about the Neolithic Era, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. The Neolithic Era began about 9,000 years ago and ended at about 4,000 BCE. The word Neolithic means New Stone Age. Also, it was the last part of the Stone Age. People during this time began to grow crops and live in sedentary communities. Also, the different villages and settlements began to trade with each other. For example, they would trade a pair of oxen for some pottery. Settlements often looked like this. The Bronze Age began after the Neolithic, when people began to make bronze. Although now we use copper and tin, originally people used copper and arsenic before realizing arsenic's toxicity. It eventually fell in 2200 BCE when the Iron Age began. Also, people during this time grew staple crops such as rice, tubers, corn, and grains like wheat and barley. The Iron Age began because bronze was expensive, but it was also very rare. The first iron was ever used was from meteorites that hit the ground. Also, during the Iron Age, the Chinese invented plows, so growing crops and sowing soil could be easier. Also, iron made weapons and armor made out of iron were stronger than bronze. The Hittites were very skilled at ironworking. After the Paleolithic era, people began migrating to Asia into North America. Then, around 9,000 years ago, farmers began to grow staple food crops like rice in China, tubers in Africa, and grains in Mesopotamia. Originally, the knowledge of farming started in Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. In the Americas, Native Americans grew corn, beans, squash, potatoes, and tomatoes. During this time, people also began to domesticate animals such as cattle, pigs, goats, and dogs. Sheep were domesticated for their wool and meat during this time also. Houses in the Neolithic communities were often made of adobe or clay with wooden supports. Bronze Age. When the Bronze Age began after the Neolithic, people began to make bronze. Although it was more of a slow transition into using bronze, because stone tools were still used during this time period. Bronze was originally used as a decorative metal for tools, but the Egyptians used bronze tools to carve hieroglyphics and tombs for pharaohs. Villages in the Bronze Age were similar to Neolithic villages, but had buildings for people to smelt copper and tin together. To smelt copper and tin together in order to make bronze. Also, the wheel was invented during the Bronze Age, making travel easier, allowing more kingdoms to trade. The Iron Age began at different times in different areas. For example, in Central Africa, they went from Stone Age to Iron Age without a Bronze Age transition. Also, the Egyptians and Hittites allied together after fighting in a couple wars, and the Egyptians learned how to work iron from the Hittites, as they were very great at working with iron. Since the Chinese invented the plow, and that made growing crops easier, allowing villages to have more surpluses of food, this gave villages the chance to grow into huge imperial cities, and eventually growing into huge empires such as the Roman Empire or Macedonia. Also, people made coins out of gold and silver during this time.